It's a cold, blue Sunday dawn in Washington's Cascade Range. May 18th, 1980. Elk browse peacefully near the shore of Spirit Lake. A thin layer of frost coats the logging roads that crisscross the foothills. From the summit of Mount St. Helens, a veil of steam lifts, rising from a massive, swollen bulge on its north flank. The world around it seems normal, but the mountain itself is alive. It groans, it ticks, a giant holding its breath. For 2 months, this iconic peak has been anything but quiet. Since March 20th, thousands of earthquakes have shaken its foundation. Small bursts of ash began punching through the snow and ice on March 27th, staining the pristine cone a dirty gray. Deep inside, a cryptodome, a balloon of pressurized, molten rockies inflating the mountain's north side, pushing it outward by feet every single day. The authorities have established closure zones, roadblocks, a red zone where entry is forbidden. But still, people wait. Uneasy, but waiting, on a ridge just north of the peak. A USGS volcanologist observes the mountain. His call sign is known to the agency office in Vancouver. With calm hands, he makes notes in an ash-scratched field book, his pencil tracing the nervous spikes of the seismic. His thermos, it seems, never gets cold. He's listening to the mountain's heartbeat. Further down, along the north fork of the Toutle River, the weekend silence is broken only by the low idle of a loader. A veteran logger breathes in the familiar scent of chain oil and fir sap. Before starting his day, he glances at a worn family photo tucked inside his wallet. A small, private ritual. He knows the mountain is angry, but work is work. To the northeast, on what is considered a safe ridge, an amateur photographer has his tripod legs sunk deep into the forest floor. Canisters of film rattle in his coat pocket as he moves, his eyes fixed on the bright, white cone, waiting for the perfect shot. A fine, volcanic grit settles on his tongue, a taste of what's to come. He's here to witness history. Miles downstream, in a small office buzzing with the hum of fluorescent lights, a county radio dispatcher sits before a large map. Thumbtacks mark every crucial river crossing and bridge. She knows every deputy's call sign by heart. The radio crackles with routine check-ins from troopers at the roadblocks, their voices almost too casual, a forced calm that doesn't quite mask the tension. Back on the mountain, the science is written on the landscape. Snowfields are slumped and fractured around the distended flank. Fumaroles, vents of volcanic gas, pop and hiss like boiling tar. The pressure is immense, searching for a seam, a weak point. Magma trapped within the mountain is bloating it from the inside, and everyone knows that even stone has its limits. Distant booms echo from deep within the earth, like someone knocking on a door from the inside. Then, at 8:32 in the morning, it happens. A jolt. Not a rumble, but a sharp, brutal shock, as if a trapdoor has been dropped beneath the entire mountain. The swollen north face shivers, then visibly buckles. Snow and ice peel away in vast, silent sheets. On the ride, the volcanologist drops his pencil and grabs the radio microphone, his voice urgent. Vancouver. Vancouver. This is it. The entire north side of the mountain, a colossal slab of rock and glacier, begins to slide. The sound isn't of an explosion. Not yet. It's the deep, grinding roar of solid rock turning into a fluid, unstoppable wave. The mountain gives way, not all at once, but in a sickening, grinding sequence. The north flank, a monument of rock and ice for millennia, begins to slide. It doesn't slump. It fractures, breaking into immense blocks, some the size of city districts, and they start to race downhill. It is the largest landslide in recorded history, a river of earth moving at over 150 miles per hour. Entire valley, glaciers, ancient and immense, are lifted from their beds and ride the churning debris like colossal white rafts on a brown, angry sea. The movement is so vast it feels like the horizon itself is tilting. Then, the head wall, the very peak of the mountain, pulls away like a curtain, exposing the raw, superheated, pressurized core of the volcano, its molten heart, now open to the sky. Through the cacophony, a voice crackles over the radio. It's the volcanologist, his tone clipped, urgent, stripped of all but the essential. This is it. This is the big one. But his words are almost immediately swallowed. The landslide was just the beginning. It acted like a cork being pulled from a champagne bottle. The sudden release of pressure on the magma system below is catastrophic. A lateral blast not up, but sideways, aimed directly north. It's a ground-hugging surge, a pyroclastic flow of superheated gas, ash, and pulverized rock, erupting outwards at over 300 miles per hour. It's not a fireball, it's a scouring, gray-density current. An atomic-scale sandblaster, moving at the speed of sound. It rips the landscape down to the bone, stripping soil, trees, and life from the slopes in a flash. Miles away, the logger hears the mountains. Deep rumble escalate into a full-throated, metallic roar. It's a sound that feels wrong, a noise that tears the air. Then a wind-up physical shove with no weather to explain. It hits him. He sees pine needles scissor off the firs, stripped clean in an instant. Instinct takes over. He dives behind the heavy steel blade of his bulldozer as daylight is bleached to an oppressive, swirling gray. The world turns to static and thunder. Closer still, the photographer is working. His camera already firing, capturing the impossible sight of the mountain's face collapsing frame by frame. He's documenting the slide when a silent, brilliant flash erupts from the chasm. The blast. He watches it through his lens. A boiling, expanding wall of ash rushing straight for him. His mind is a tug-of-war. The instinct to capture the shot of a lifetime versus the primal urge to live. He abandons the tripod. Runs. In the dispatcher's office, the radio console explodes into a chaos of voices, all talking at once, a symphony of panic and disbelief. Then, one call cuts through the noise, chillingly clear, from the volcanologist on the ridge. Vancouver? Vancouver? This is it. Her training kicks in. She looks at the clock, her hands steady as she scribbles down the time. 8:32 a.m. The pressure wave from the blast arrives first. A silent, invisible hammer that shatters windows and knocks people off their feet miles away, long before the sound or the heat. The flow itself is hot enough to sear lungs, instantly. Fast enough to obliterate 230 square miles of dense forest in minutes. Trees that have stood for 500 years are snapped like twigs. Boulders the size of cars are tossed through the air like toys. The sound is a physical assault, a relentless roar of 1,000 freight trains colliding, of metal being torn apart, of the earth itself screaming. Phones ring once, and then go dead. Radio channels clip in and out of existence. Underneath it all is the mountain's internal thunder, a deep, continuous surf-like rumble that rolls through the valleys, shaking the ground. The photographer scrambles over a small knoll, gasping for breath, and looks back. The horizon is gone. In its place is a black, churning, vertical wall, moving faster than any car, devouring the world. The logger, huddled behind his steel blade, feels the heat intensify as the world outside his small shelter turns to an abrasive, suffocating roar. The volcanologist's final transmission breaks into a shriek of static and then silence. Back at the dispatch center, surrounded by a wall of noise and failing connections, the dispatcher leans into her headset, speaking into the void, a prayer against the inevitable. Hold your positions, do not drive toward the river. The world goes dark at midday. A wind, stronger than anything imaginable, rips the breath from your lungs. It's a physical force, a solid wall of air that shoves and punishes. Grit, fine as ground glass, finds its way past your lips, grinding between your teeth. Then, a heartbeat after the crushing pressure, comes the heat. Not a fire, but an oppressive, searing wave that makes the very air on your skin feel alive and fundamentally wrong. Branches, thick as a man's arm, sigh through the air like thrown knives. Bark peels from ancient trees in long, curling strips. Survival becomes a series of frantic, instinctive micro-choices. A logger, caught near his bulldozer, scrambles for cover. He wedges himself into the lee of the heavy machine, pulling a dusty bandana over his mouth and nose. He presses his face into the damp soil, just an inch off the ground, where the air is marginally cooler, fighting for each ragged breath. Elsewhere, a photographer, who had been documenting the serene beauty of the mountain just moments before, tumbles into a shallow creek bed. He lies face down, pulling his hat over the back of his neck as a futile shield. The cool water he fell into is already turning to a warm, gritty soup. His camera, his life's work, is abandoned, half submerged in the silty flow. Miles away, at a roadblock, a state trooper watches the sky turn a deep, bruised purple. He doesn't hesitate. In a split second, he makes a decision that goes against every protocol. He guns the engine of his cruiser, swinging it sideways to block the entire highway. He knows it might not work, that it might even cost him his own escape route, but it's the only barrier he can create. It's a desperate, defiant act against an incomprehensible force. The science behind the chaos is brutally simple. The lateral blast, a pyroclastic density current, hugs the ground, moving at incredible speed. It instantly melts the vast fields of snow and ice on the mountain's upper slopes. This melt water mixes with the tons of ash and debris, birthing something new and terrifying. Lahars. These are not floods. They are rivers of hot, concrete-thick slurry. They begin their charge down the north and south fork of the Toutle River, scouring the banks, consuming everything in their path. Entire log decks stacked high with timber, and whole hillsides of felled trees are swept into the flow, becoming massive battering rams within the churning, gray mass. In the dispatch center, the tension is a palpable thing. The dispatcher can't see the mountain, but the map spread across her desk has become a living, breathing entity under her hands. Her voice is calm, but her actions are urgent. She's rerouting emergency units, pulling them off the riverside roads she knows are now death traps. She calls the operators at the dams downstream, her words clipped and precise. She alerts the towns in the valley. Castle Rock, Longview, get to high ground. Now. Between the frantic calls, an unnerving silence grows on channels that, just an hour ago, were filled with the familiar, friendly voices of deputies and first responders. She doesn't have time to dwell on it. Another call comes in. The temperatures within these ground-hugging pyroclastic flows are lethal, capable of ending life in minutes. The ash particles are not soft dust. They're microscopic, angular shards of volcanic glass, devastating two lungs and the delicate mechanics of internal combustion engines. And the lahars, they don't follow the rules of water. They carry immense momentum, a force that doesn't care about pavement or man-made obstacles. It only cares about gradient, the relentless pull of gravity toward the sea. The first reports start to filter through the static. A telemetry station upstream blinks out. Just before it goes silent, it transmits a final, horrifying reading. A massive, rising wall of slurry. A panicked voice crackles over a scanner, shouting above the noise. It's coming. It's full of logs. The whole river is full of logs. A bridge, a formidable structure of steel and concrete, is slammed by the first lahar wave and twisted into a grotesque sculpture. The logger, still huddled behind his dozer, still alive, hears a new sound cutting through the smothered wind. It's not the roar of the blast anymore. It's the sound of water. Big water, coming fast. The mountain doesn't just erupt outward, it erupts upward. A colossal column of gray-white ash punches through the atmosphere, surging 15 miles high into the stratosphere. It's an awesome, terrifying sight. The wind catches it immediately, shedding ash eastward like a monstrous, advancing storm front. The world below is quickly consumed. In Yakima, 85 miles away, noon turns to midnight. Streetlights flicker on at midday, casting an airy orange glow through the descending gloom. The air grows thick, tasting of grit and sulfur. Fine, powdery ash sifts under door frames, through window seals, coating every surface in a layer of gray dust. People, caught unprepared, tie dishcloths and handkerchiefs over their faces, a desperate, flimsy barrier against the choking air. On the roads, car engines sputter, their air filters clogged with the abrasive particles, and then die, leaving drivers stranded in the unnatural twilight. The emergency dispatcher's world explodes. Her net of calls widens exponentially. Hospitals are on the line, desperate for guidance on treating ash inhalation. Road crews report they're out of barricades, with more roads needing to be closed than they can possibly manage. Rumors are multiplying like viruses. The mountain is erupting again. The ash is toxic. The world is ending. Through it all, her voice remains a steady metronome of calm in the chaos. She repeats what is certain, what is confirmed. She refuses to speculate, to add to the fear. She is an anchor in a sea of panic. Miles away, in the gray wasteland, a figure claws his way out of the suffocating ash. The logger. He moves from gray to brown, then finally to color, as he emerges from the deepest drifts. He's alive, but barely. His skin is charred, his body a canvas of bruises. He knows the rivers, once his guide, are now his enemy. They are boiling, superheated mud flows, a torrent of death. He forces his battered body upslope, away from the churning debris, navigating a treacherous landscape of knockdown timber. Every step is a gamble, like crossing a nest of upturned spears, the splintered trunks shifting precariously under his weight. On another ridge, one partially shielded from the initial, searing blast, the photographer stumbles to his feet. He is shaken, his ears ringing, but miraculously unburned. The world he knew is gone, replaced by a monochrome nightmare. He's not alone. He finds others, a group of stunned campers, a pair of hikers there, faces ghostly white masks of ashen fear. A silent, shared understanding passes between them. They must be seen. They begin to work, their movements clumsy with shock, tearing strips from their shirts, breaking branches, fashioning crude flags to signal any potential rescuers. At airfields just outside the danger zone, a different kind of tension builds. Helicopter crews, National Guard, law enforcement, private pilots stand ready. They watch the weather reports, the ash forecasts, their eyes glued to the shifting patterns. Their machines hate grit. Volcanic ash can seize an engine in seconds, feel as finite. Every mission is a calculated risk against time and resources. But they prep anyway. They run through checklists, plan flight paths, their blades idling in anticipation of the moment a window of clear air might open. However brief, the volcanic plume itself is a spectacle of raw power. Volcanic lightning, a phenomenon generated by the friction of ash particles, crackles and flashes within the dark column. The ashfall continues its relentless march, stretching across the entire inland northwest. Within days, it will circle the globe. A faint, high-altitude haze, the Columbia River, the great artery of the Pacific Northwest, begins to clog with sediment washed down from the devastated Toutle and Cowlitz rivers, threatening to halt all shipping. In communities, blanketed by the fallout, a new urgent routine begins. Residents climb onto their roofs, sweeping hourly to prevent the sheer weight of the accumulated ash from causing a catastrophic collapse. The rescue attempts are a series of heart-stopping gambles. A wave of helicopters is forced to abort a mission as the ash cloud thickens unexpectedly, reducing visibility to zero in an instant. One pilot navigates solely by his instruments. Peering through a pencil width of clear plexiglass he's desperately managed to wipe clean on his windscreen. A rescuer hovers over a potential landing zone, a tangled maze of blowdown timber. He debates the call. The rotor wash from his helicopter could turn the massive logs below into deadly projectiles, flipping them like matchsticks. The risk is immense. Eight pulls back. Then, a break. An unexpected clearing opens in the clouds, west of the shattered peak. The weather is shifting. A window has appeared. Radios crackle to life with a fresh set of coordinates. A pilot acknowledges his helicopter banks, nosing cautiously into the gray blast zone. On the ridge, the photographer and the other survivors hear it first, a faint, distant thrumming. It grows louder, closer, the sound of hope becoming frighteningly real. The logger, exhausted but driven by a primal will to live, reaches a slash pile, a small, relatively flat clearing of debris. It could be a landing pad, if he can just make himself seen. The sound of rotor beats fills the air, accelerating, closer, closer. Inte Shao's rescue was a ballet of nerve and geometry. Helicopters flared into small pockets of still air, their blades slicing through the gray. Crewmen, perched on skids, hauled people coated in ash from the brink. It was a race against time, a series of calculated risks. Pilots timed their lifts between furious gusts and blinding curtains of ash. Imagine it. A logger, stumbling through the hellscape, suddenly finds himself in the powerful wash of a helicopter. He throws an arm up, his eyes locking with the crew chief's. In that instant, a connection is made. He rises, suddenly weightless, lifted out of a monochrome world of destruction. Elsewhere, a photographer, fingers trembling, hands off a canister of film. It's not just a roll of pictures. It's a message from a war zone, a testament to what he's witnessed. But not every reach connects. We see a pilot wave off a landing. The ground below, too unstable as logs, roll under the force of the rotor wash. Some were saved, others were not. We honor both outcomes, without melodrama, as the raw, unfiltered truth of the moment. When the dusts began to settle, it revealed a mountain remade. The once perfect, symmetrical cone of Mount St. Helens was gone. In its place, a raw, gaping wound. The summit was lower by 1,300 feet, sliced open into a vast, horseshoe-shaped crater that yawned to the north. Below it, the pumice plain lay scorched, still radiating heat in places. Spirit Lake, once a pristine jewel, was now unrecognizable. Its surface was higher, choked by a massive raft of uprooted timber, a floating graveyard of an ancient forest. Within months, deep inside the crater, the first of many new lava domes would begin to grow, a sign that the mountain was wounded, but very much alive. The human cost was stated with a quiet, devastating weight. 57 people lost. They were scientists, photographers, campers, and loggers. Among them was Harry R. Truman, the feisty 83-year-old caretaker who refused to leave his beloved Spirit Lake Lodge, and David Johnston, the USGS volcanologists, whose final, fateful transmission, Vancouver. This is it, echoed into silence. He was never heard from again. Downstream, entire communities were buried, digging out from feet of ash and thick, cement-like mud. Rivers, choked with debris, carved new, unpredictable paths through the landscape. The people of the Pacific Northwest were forced to learn the geometry of volcanic hazards in a terrifyingly new way. But from this tragedy, a powerful legacy was forged. The eruption of Mount St. Helens became a catalyst, accelerating the development of modern volcano monitoring across the United States and the world. Hazard maps became sharper, more detailed, drawn from the hard lessons learned. Today, lahar, warning, sirens stand ready in towns nestled beneath the slumbering giants of Rainier and Hood. School children learn how to shelter from ashfall, and why respecting closure zones is not a suggestion, but a matter of life and death. In time, the slopes of St. Helens began to green again. Elk returned to the high meadows. Life, resilient and stubborn, found a way. But the sky remains an honest, permanent reminder of the power that sleeps beneath our feet. Picture this. After a grueling 20-hour shift, coordinating the desperate rescue efforts, finally steps outside. The sky, for the first time in days, is rinsed clean. She looks north, to the horizon, and sees the familiar silhouette of the mountain she thought she knew, now with its top missing. The world feels quieter, but not calmer. It's as if everyone and everything is listening, holding its breath. The eruption changed not just a mountain, but how we see the world. Thank you for joining us on this journey into one of modern history's most impactful disasters. These are the stories that shake the world, reminding us of nature's power and the resilience of the human spirit. If you want to explore more true stories that keep us close to the fire, and even closer to the people who face it, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We'll see you in the next one.